guess as soon as Ken's ready, we can get started. I know Brian is not going to be here, so.
I'm just sitting up by our thing.
That one, thank you.
Motion to accept.
I just have one thing.
Yeah.
Under the community garden, Jay didn't recommend an expansion location. He just showed me the plans.
What? That, okay, he just showed you the
Yeah. Probably.
And so who was the, it was more of just weighing the balance between,
Well, because we knew that the septic's gonna be 10
Right.
feet, the leach field's gonna be 10 feet between the library and the community garden. Jay showed me the plans, all the pipes are gonna be horizontal to the parking area here. So the only place left was either into the further towards the trails, which is Jackson Ski Touring, or towards the ditch.
okay. Any other? Okay, is there a second?
Second, Dick.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No? Okay, thank you. All right. I did not hear any update from Brian or John about the pruning of the orchard, so I'm thinking it looks more likely it's going to happen in the fall, which will give us time to put together a plan. Dick, on pruning, like in the fall, is it after a hard frost, or is it, what is the best scheduling for that?
You know, with those trees, I don't think it's gonna hurt them to be pruned anytime.
Okay.
What you wait for is for the sap to come out of the limbs, go back to the root system. That's why, you know, early spring is good, because it hasn't started to flow up yet. But these trees are gonna do what they're gonna do.
Sure.
You know, so, yeah, I think one rule of thumb is if you take 1/3 of the crown on any given year, you're pretty safe not to do damage to the tree.
And you suggest leaf off in the fall?
Okay. I guess that would be all I have for that for now. Do you have anything? Okay. Anyone else? Prospect Farm? No? Great. Jackson Falls. I contacted Headwaters Hydrology. The earliest availability they have to come out and look would be early midsummer, so if that works. He just wanted to know if that would be fine for timing, and he'll get back to us with an estimate. He'll review. He said he'd like to do a site visit after the ice is out, so it'd be earliest May that we'd be able to get started there, so. I'll let him know.
What information are you looking for from them?
So, in 2018, they prepared a report that had sort of the basic erosion controls that we've implemented, but with some of the larger bank washouts and looking at how can we get ahead of anything that needs to be done there, and just having a plan of knowing how much it's going to cost in the long run, because we're not going to be able to do anything capital intensive out of the Wildcat Fund.
No.
So I would just like to have an idea of how expansive that work would need to be in order to stabilize the bank, and also to just kind of see what the impact of the new bridge footing is on that bank, or on the bank closest to the road.
And Dick, I don't know if you've been up there, but some of the placement of rocks and stuff that was put up there after the 2018 have now been moved because of the Irene and because of the December 2023 storm.
Okay, I was just curious,
Yeah.
you know, because I think it's always good to have a baseline idea, you know, on any project, you know, give some information, and because I'm sure that funding is going to be a long and tedious process. So the more information we have, I think the better.
Yeah, I think, I can't remember if you were here at the last meeting, but
Mhm.
if we can get them and get a general idea of what needs to be done and what the cost is, then we can think in terms of going back to the town, and that would be timely relative to going back to the town.
Mm-hmm.
But until we get professional opinion here,
Right.
we just sit here and discuss it over and over until it's washed out.
Yep, that sure would be nice if we could. Well, it also is because there's going to be an effort to try to, I don't know, get all the various groups together, the school, the highway department, the fire department, and talk to each other about funding so that it doesn't, like, this, I think this year is going to be the big hammer from everyone, the Historical Society. I don't think the Conservation Commission is going to ask for anything beyond what we've done year after year, which is good, because this is going to be a really tough year. But in time, I think there should be more dialogue amongst all the groups, so that you don't get into that situation where everybody wants everything this year.
I think, yeah, when we discussed this at the last meeting, I think we were pretty cognizant that this was the wrong year. But it's also wrong because we really don't have our homework done sufficiently to come forward.
And that's how I think we'll have the best shot at it, is having really good information.
And that's why Ben was asked at the last meeting touch bases and see if we could start that conversation going with the professionals.
It might be interesting since they just had they brought together for lack of a better word, a facilities committee to look at all the kind of upgrades to facilities in town. That's something that's going on. It might be interesting to do a similar thing, but for land and natural resources. So bringing in those different stakeholders and looking at like, okay, like these are the different pieces. This is what needs to happen. Like what might be your big ask in the next 2 or 3 years? What might be your big ask? That sort of thing. So I know that's what the facilities committee just did. It was the school, the library, the fire station, a couple other groups. So it might be just interesting to identify like, okay, who are the big stakeholders and natural resources in the town?
Well, I think as Dick pointed out, the vote on the firehouse will be very telling.
It's gonna drive everything.
Yeah, so I guess could that somehow be tied as one of the things that we should have, which I don't think we have it as a formalized document, which is an inventory of all of the natural resources in the town or town properties, which
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking like ones that might be like, I mean, 'cause I know it's mostly the town. I mean, I know we're mostly thinking about town, so it's mostly us. But I was thinking like, oh, maybe ski touring, maybe the Wentworth, like those other kind of group, maybe Snowflake that have like common-ish land that is used by lots of people or that has use on it, and that might be seeking money or might be seeking changes. Like I don't know. It just might be interesting to look at a big picture of it.
Somebody asked me for a list of all the conservation properties in Jackson. I referred them to the town because I figured they'd have that information in their data.
Actually, probably the best one is Upper Saco Valley Land Trust. They've got an interactive map on their website that's it's very user friendly.
The state has a map, Granite, in the GIS system.
Had that as a list, not a map, quite a while ago though.
The GIS on the state is actually a map.
All the properties in town that were in current use or any conservation easements or whatever.
And where's that list? Where is that listed?
It's someplace in my office.
Just getting back on Jackson Falls, the other thing is, once we get the headwaters hydrology report, that'll probably be an integral part of the Jackson Falls management plan, because that's gonna be the big thing. We can go out and spread wood chips and stuff, but if we don't find a way to control the next big flood, we're constantly just putting a Band-Aid on stuff up there.
Is there any thought to go further upstream from the falls as far as a management plan?
The short answer is the Jackson Ski Touring Foundation, because it's a very convoluted ownership. It does own the golf course. Well, most of the golf course, I should say, because there's actually 4 different entities that own different parts of the golf course, but the hotel has a lease on the golf course. I met with NRCS because there's definitely a need for a riparian buffer, because the golf course over time, before the ski touring took ownership of it, had cut away most of the riparian, both the brush and we had met with Nels and gone out and gone through and all that sort of stuff, to see whether we couldn't get something going, because now that the Ski Touring Foundation is the owner, and we've met with the golf course to try to figure out. The challenge we have now is NRCS is, like most federal things, it's just a total chaos.
We don't even know if they'll do away with it
Exactly.
for a while.
So we had gotten out there, we'd been working on trying to, the whole plan on the golf course relative to your, and you are correct, the upstream of the bridge is, the concept of having a better riparian buffers is not going to stop the flooding on the golf course. That's a floodplain. but you want to slow the energy down. Of course, right now it's just moving through there with no, because all the trees and all the shrubs have been cut out, it just moves through there with tremendous force. And of course, that force is moving right down underneath the bridge into where we are. If you can slow that water down, you're not going to get rid of the volume of water, but you can slow it down. That is something that the Ski Touring Foundation is working on, but right now with NRCS and Total Chaos.
Would you be slowing it down by like felling logs, trees and that?
Well, the big thing you want to do is just have like at least a 50-foot tree shrub buffer, because the water moving through is just going to get friction against the trees as it moves through to absorb the energy. That's 101 watershed management. That's why riparian buffers is so important.
Another avenue in may be for trout habitat, because there is money, no, there has been money for that, for, making habitat for trout and,
You're right, and I've actually been chasing some of that stuff out,
Yeah.
and as I say, we've had conversations with the golf course, because you have to figure out how do you get the buffer in without getting rid of the fairway, so it's kind of a delicate game. We had the field visits, we were working on that, but right now, we're in a great big vacuum.
right.
That'd be interesting for brook trout restoration, because most of that wood comes directly from on site. So I guess they're hauling it from, and if you were to treat it on the golf, there's not a lot of trees on the golf course. I guess you could go up into like the Pepper's easement. It'd be interesting. Like
Pepper
where-
easement has the same problem. I won't get into the Pepper easement.
There
Just
are
trying to figure out where you get
other
trees from.
controversies there.
But that has to be initiated, anything with NRCS has to be initiated by the landowner.
Okay. That'll be interesting to see how that shakes out.
On the world, or the national scene, that's probably pretty minor compared to the real issues out there.
Yeah. When is town meeting?
The 11th.
Voting is 11th, I think.
Well, Tuesday is the voting and Thursday is the
Yeah,
town meeting.
is so it's the
It's
13th.
17th,
13th.
on the 13th. And they said you can vote separately for the fire station. I don't know if it's other warrant articles, or is it just the fire station?
I think that I talked to Jerry Doherty, and I think they're going to do, at the beginning of the meeting, they're going to have voting. The polls have to be open for an hour. You can conduct more of the meeting during that hour, but the polls have to remain open for the hour. And then after that, it'll be a vote, because there are things that are on the warrant that will be swayed by how the fire station goes.
Is that vote, do you know, for the fire station on Tuesday, or is it at the town meeting itself?
I believe that's a town meeting itself.
That's right, that would make sense.
So that's at 7 to 8, you're voting on that. But what I was wondering, are you voting on the fire station and other warrant articles, or just the fire station?
I believe just the fire station.
So the other warrant articles must be in.
I think that'll be
Town.
a yes or no.
No.
Do you know, is that a majority or is it a 2/3?
I think it's 2/3.
Yeah.
Because it's a bonded issue, and I think that has to be 2/3.
So is there any, I guess, I'm gonna maybe skip ahead. Well, I don't know, if there's any issues that the Conservation Commission needs to be prepared for to speak at the meeting. I don't think we have any position on fire station, or I think the only issue is the planning board's, or the change to the
Site design.
site design, which we're in favor of.
Yeah.
And that vote is on Tuesday.
Yes.
And Leslie did ask for a letter, didn't she, for the,
Yes, so that was, I think there might be a copy of it in that pile, but, that was for a grant, yeah, from T-Mobile. Or just sort of,
That's a letter of support letter.
yeah, so I think we already indicated we would do that, so I just wanted to make sure that was appropriate, and I can draft something for that and send that to her. But I guess I just wanted to be prepared if there was any issues that came up at town meeting that the Conservation Commission needed to have any input into, so.
I think the only one would probably be our budget, which is the standard $1,500,
Yeah.
quite frankly. I don't think it's, questions are normally asked, but if a question does come, you have to explain how and what it's used for.
Yeah, okay. Is there any? I guess I can move on from Jackson Falls. Is there any Gray's Inn items that need to be addressed?
I had a couple Gray's Inn item things.
Yeah.
So one is good. One is that in the past month, Ski Touring went in and replaced all the maps that had been back there on not necessarily the Mystery House loop, but some of the adjacent trail network off of that, which really helps make it more clear. There's kind of a big spider web of trails. So it was really nice that they went in there and put updated maps in.
There's a volunteer who has just been super good about putting up the
Yeah, it's great.
"You Are Here"
Um,
signs across the whole network, including the snowshoe trails, etc.
it's pretty easy, especially in winter, to get turned around back there, and so it's clear. The other thing is that the interpretive signs that we put up there, I don't know, 10 years ago now, it's been a while, are starting to degrade, and two of them no longer interpret things that you can see anymore. So like one of them was a view out to Carter Notch, which is now completely obscured. The other one was a view to Mount Washington, which is also like fully grown in. So I guess the decision would be, do we want to still maintain that view shed? Do we want to cut trees and maintain the view shed? Do we want to just remove those signs and let it grow up? Do we want to replace the signs? Period. It's probably about time to replace most of them anyway. Do we want to replace them all? Do we not want to replace them all? I did get feedback from from a hotel and from Ski Touring that they actually like the interpretive signs there because it gives people a place to go. There's not like a ton of easy woods walks, and that's one of them, and so it's kind of a destination thing. But we just need to decide what we want to do. It's kind of to the point now, like a nice interpretive sign looks good, but like when they start to fall apart or when they start to get degraded, it looks really junky. So like, I don't know if we want to go in there and keep opening up the view shed back up or just take that sign out, but we just at some point should put that on our to-do list.
is there a seasonal view?
No, I went in winter. It's still like you couldn't see. I mean, you could kind of see. You couldn't see really Carter Notch at all anymore. You could still see Black Mountain kind of in front of you, and Mount Washington was in the clouds when I was there. But I don't think you would have been able to see it even in winter.
That area does, because I usually walk my dog at least once a week back through there. It gets heavy use.
Yeah, I mean, I think people like it.
I think that there's been so much energy put into the area that we should really think about keeping it up, because I think it is important. I think people use it, and I've been back there with my dog families with kids, and, you know, it's something that's very available to them.
What I don't think is most people don't know when they're leaving town land. If you're going toward Nestle Nook, it'll tell you you're leaving the Jackson Ski Touring, which means you're also leaving the town land. But you go up around to where the rock is on the Mystery Loop, and then there's trails that go off, and they're wonderful trails. It's beautiful topography out through that whole back area. But you are moving off town land as you proceed down there. Anything, and I don't think you're talking about, because those views are on the town land, if I recall correctly.
Yes, yeah, the two ones are basically if you do the Mystery Loop counterclockwise,
Yeah,
they're the ones that are right before you get to the old foundation.
yeah, yeah.
They're past the kind of glacial erratic. And then what I didn't see, there was one of the signs I couldn't find at all. There should have been one down here, and I didn't see it at all. So it was either covered in snow or it had fallen off, or I didn't know where it was at all.
Are the views historic views, or were they cut at some point?
I don't know.
Historic views, I mean, if you take a look at the old photos of Jackson, where it was sheep farming, in one sense, you know,
Everything
it was pasture land all the way up on part of Doublehead and so on and so forth. I mean, it's just the thing like on the Carter Notch Spur, where it was put in as a view. Well, that was only because they cut recently there. Is that a historic view? Probably not. But I think there were two designated view spots, just as ski touring is taking care of a couple, maintaining the views up on Prospect Farm. I think it's a question of what view sheds do we want to maintain.
The one that looks towards Carter Notch and Black is like clearly, I mean, you can see like, you know, it's like one of those classic view sheds where it's like a wall on, you know, you can see like they cut that strip, they cut down this way, and you can see the remnants of it very, very clearly where it cut, and it's just now starting to grow in. The one towards Mount Washington is a little harder to see. Like, I think that one was less of like the kind of like, all right, we're gonna cut a 30-foot swath and just go down. The one to Mount Washington, I think, was more of like, oh, we'll clip here, we'll clip here, we'll clip here, and you can kind of see it a little bit. That's what it looks like, at least.
I think it gets down to the question of who's willing to do it, or where's the money coming from?
Right. Who wants to pay for it? Who wants to do it?
Well, I guess I'd like to go out there and see that. That's well within my wheelhouse. I know how to cut trees. So.
Well, maybe when the weather gets nicer, or maybe just at one of these meetings we can end,
Okay.
or like when we feel like we're like, okay, we're ready to do this, we can just walk out there for one of the meetings.
Does somebody have a chainsaw trimmer, you know, that's on the, because now you can get the little electric ones that are on the pole. That would make, because a lot of those you aren't gonna take the tree out, you're just gonna,
We might have one at work.
yeah,
I'd
I
have to look.
have a very nice pole saw.
yeah.
So.
Old fashioned kind.
I have the hand ones, but the reach,
Yeah, I have a
it's slow. And if the limbs
25-foot
are big,
reach.
if you got one, because my son brought one up when I was trying to clean around my driveway. It's like, okay, I can go out and spend 5 hours doing this. In 5 minutes, the job's done.
The other thing to think about if we were going out there doing work is whether if we'd want to clear out around the old foundation too. Whether we want to, like that's, you know, a question we can talk about. It's like, do we want to maintain that so it's you can see the historic foundation, or do we let that grow up?
Or part of it.
Or part of it, yeah.
I guess that kind of raises the question in my mind of what has the maintenance been on like the cellar holes at Prospects? Like, what has been the goal there?
The goal there has been to maintain them so that they're open and they're viewable. I know that at one point, I don't know when this was.
And the ski touring will be making the new signs to put out this summer.
At one point, I can't remember, at some point in the past 10 years, I know we were like, oh, we need to clean up one of the cellar holes. I don't remember what it is. And it was ski touring that went out there and just, I don't know, buzzed around it just to, you know, kind of make sure it's still visible.
I know Rick
Excuse me.
cleared a little bit last time, or maybe 3 years ago, he pulled some, or did some trimming around the ones at the orchard.
Oh, maybe that was it. Maybe it was just 3 years ago.
But I don't think it's something we've we've talked about formally, so, other than what ski touring is.
Well, ski touring hasn't done the clearing of the cellar holes. They were
Just Preparing
obligated,
the signs.
right, to prepare the signs, and they were obligated to clear out the view sheds, which they did this fall.
I thought one of the years I could have sworn they were like, oh, we were up there, so we just did the.
They might have, but
Yeah.
that would have been,
I think it was, yeah, I think they just said, oh, we were up there.
whoever
so
it
we-
was, and okay, I'll do it quick, but that's not a formal agreement that I'm aware of. But Rick might be, take a look at those and see whether he's interested in what it'll cost.
At Prospect.
Well, all of the above. I mean, let's face it, those cellar holes, you'll get trees growing up through them and everything. If you want to keep them open, do it when they're small, not when they're big. Or, we can do a work crew, but there's a finite number of hours any of us are gonna have to go out and do that, and do Jackson Falls and do, at some point.
I think this is one of those things of if we can just plan far enough ahead, like we've been able to generate enough interest in the things we've had where we've given very little notice of getting people to come
Mhm.
out. So if we can get like maybe 2 months notice or a month's notice of just people, because we've had, it doesn't take that many people, so I think if, maybe I will put something out in e-news of just
A work day, yeah.
Yeah.
town property work days throughout the summer, like just have a designated Saturday.
Yeah, for up there, I think, I mean, not the views, but for the cellar hole, I think you just, some loppers and an electric weed eater maybe is all, I mean, you don't need much to clear that out.
Okay.
Yeah, once you get into chainsaws, you wanna be a little careful.
So I prefer the hand tools.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you can't lend them out. If somebody has, like, I have a chainsaw. So if I come in with a chainsaw, I'm responsible for myself. And that's, should be standard working process. But, to lend that chainsaw
Right.
to somebody else and they have an accident with it, then
No,
it's
no. I think this summer I will be getting, well, we'll see. It remains to be seen. Forest Service certified for the chainsaw. So I think in terms of liability, that covers a lot of things. So
If they still have it.
yes, yes, that's a money-making thing though. So they charge for that. That's not.
Although Leopold will turn over his grave.
I'm not that careful. Who they-
Yes. Okay.
You better check to see if they're still offering that.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. There may be. I don't know if it goes through a private vendor or if it just needs to. Yeah, I'm not sure. Community garden.
Yeah, so, I went to the town last Tuesday to the select board because it was suggested that we get permission as part of the application for the Pocket Foundation. So we got approval to expand, and as part of that, I was talking about, since Gary's not there, if we can get any help from the town. It doesn't sound like it, but we're gonna talk about it. But I've got a few people that might be willing to help. I've got one person who was on my list, on my reserve list for a plot, who was renting in Jackson. He's a carpenter, and he's not sure where he'll end up in terms, but he would like to help. And I don't know how people would feel about offering, a box to somebody like that who is willing to help, who was in Jackson, is kind of, itinerant, to some extent. I don't know what people think about that.
I think as long as he's willing to commit to maintaining it, it sounds fine to me.
Yeah, I think I'd rather have it used than empty.
Be nice to have a professional help too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
If he's giving you the labor,
Mm.
what does it cost for a plot? $50? I think you get your money back and then some right off.
I think so, yeah,
It's a quid pro quo.
yeah.
I'm trying. I don't have the date for it, but there is going to be the. I don't know what for Gary that the town is doing. It
I
just,
think it was Saturday the 5th.
Mm.
it's not on the.
I saw it on
Yeah,
the news, but.
I think it's Saturday, that Saturday the 15th or whatever, that Saturday of January, February, March, yeah. I'm pretty certain it's the 15th. And I think you can send in, it'd probably be good just to send in, I think there's a email link there from E-News to Gary's wife.
Okay.
And I think just, if the Conservation Commission could just send at a minimum, just something to them
An
saying,
acknowledgement.
yeah,
Yeah.
and, he was very responsive after the December 23 to get the road fixed so people would get back up to Prospect, that sort of stuff. I found him, and the few times I've interacted with him from the Conservation Commission, he's not a person about bureaucracy, he was a person about getting stuff done.
And he was absolutely one of the most helpful
Oh, yeah.
people.
It wasn't, I need to check with the selectmen first.
Right,
before there's
it
none
was
of
just, let's get this going.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've just that's coming up. So.
But I think as a chair, not to dump more stuff on you, Ben, but just send a quick email to that address and just say, on behalf of the Conservation Commission, we just found
We'll
Gary.
miss him.
We'll miss him, and
Mm.
we found him just one of the most positive people to work with. He was focused on getting the job done and not the bureaucracy.
Okay, I'll go ahead. I gotta find that e-news thing. That's the problem with the e-news is sometimes they get buried.
I'll see if
I wish
can
there was
find-
an archive for them.
Um,
Sometimes I just delete them.
Well, when you hit delete, it'll go to your trash. If you haven't wiped out your trash, you can usually go back and find the old ones until you go back and finally wipe out your trash. I'll see if I can find that and send it to you. You've got enough.
I don't have anything for Wildcat River, although this is kind of March, April is kind of when they start getting for the VRAP program, ramping that up, so.
Don't be surprised that that program gets deep sixed. I think you forget that as much as New Hampshire touts itself on its great taxes, 1/3 of, and Sununu was a great champion of trashing federal dollars, but 1/3 of the state budget is federal pass-through.
Right.
And a lot of those programs with the DEs were federal pass-through dollars, so don't be surprised if, and particularly as the state's looking at to cut more, and then you take out the federal dollars, it's gonna be a huge hole in DES. Just to get anything done, permitting, you name it.
Oh, good.
Uh,
I said, oh, good.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I'll reach out to Liam and see if he has any insight into that. If not, that sort of science aspect was not things that we really needed to be monitoring. We can still do the bacteria monitoring, and we can just pay for that out of the budget,
Yeah.
so.
I mean, we'll see what the final state budget looks like, but it's pretty bleak.
Conservation easements, I just need to take those, if, I think everyone has filed, I think Brian is the only one who didn't get things filed online, so, we'll just do the paper copies for that.
We need to do paper copies for them too?
We've kind of had, every time Brian and I have tried to go through the system, it won't allow it, and
Oh.
the paper copy is just, it doesn't need to be as big of a headache as it has been, so,
Gotcha.
and they'll take that, so they just reached out to just make sure that we got that filed. No wetlands, or does anyone have any wetlands, or?
Does someone mind giving me like the 15-second overview of what the warrant article is for the change in the zoning ordinance? Site disturbance? Is there like a 15? If there's not a 15-second version, I'll just look it up later.
You want, would you like to,
A 15 second.
just a quick synopsis of the change in the site disturbance?
I wasn't at the last meeting, so I didn't hear about the warrant article that changed the zoning ordinance. If there's just a super quick version.
Well, they're just trying to give the building inspector the wording to let him enforce. It was a big to-do about some blasting up on Tyrol,
Mm-hmm.
that they just came in, did it, and now there's, boulders rolling around and whatever. So they're just trying to find the words that, and both Burr Phillips and Kevin Bennett liked the wording that would give them some punch, They go in and say, no, you've got to at least put on record, what you're gonna do. It's not to be approved, it's just have a paper copy of what you're gonna do.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks. I was just curious.
I took more than 15 seconds.
That was perfect. It was whatever it was the right amount of time.
Yeah, so it was just, a formal plan needs to be submitted rather than you should have a plan as a general guideline, so. Don't have any Dundee Community Forest, and I will go ahead and send a letter to the Historical Society in support of their grant.
I do have one other new business when you're ready.
Go ahead.
A couple of pictures here. I may need a letter of support. What you're looking at on the upper picture here is if you've been out the Ellis River Ski Trail, after you pass the little warm-up hut, you get to the first bridge. The December storm has eroded away, and when you look at the upper picture, that bank goes right up onto a giant esker. And it is eroding away and will eat away at the abutment to this bridge. I need to go through with DES to see whether we can get some emergency work, and then I'm also going to need to work through the Forest Service, which has been slow and painful to say the least. But the more that, and this is upstream of the bridge, so the bridge is not what's causing this. This is just essentially, and if you, that area was actually manipulated upstream from the old days. If you walk up there, and what's happening now is the water is being forced against this steep bank. It's an esker, so it's highly erodible soils. These trees are falling down. If they don't jam up underneath the bridge and erode away the abutment, they're gonna head downstream, which is likely what will play out. When they head downstream, they're gonna do one of two things. They're either gonna get hung up on the stone bridge here at Route 16, or they're gonna get deposited out on the delta here. As you know, that there is a delta where the Ellis comes into where the Wildcat. That sediment is also gonna spill out onto that delta here, and the more that that delta builds up, we're gonna see more flooding into the golf course and into town here. I'd like to get permission, and first I need to sort of figure out the permitting and all that sort of stuff. But anytime you try to go in and fix something like this, you're gonna be in the stream. It's gonna be complicated, to say the least. But a letter of support from the Conservation Commission that we would like to see this treated as an emergency. Both, and I'll probably need those letters both to DES as well as to the Forest Service. This is on Forest Service land. It actually should be Forest Service responsibility because it's not the bridge that's causing this. But then you also have all of that sediment that's going to continue to move every time we have a major storm event. But you can see those trees are, and if you come upstream, there's more trees that are falling down like this as well. So we have a lot of trees that could be sent downstream because Missouri Brook just below the bridge dumps into the Ellis, and then, as you know, the Ellis continues under Route 16, which is not a very high bridge, and then as that water slows down in the delta, it would deposit these things out there, and there's enough flooding that's happening in town, in these major events. So I'd like to just get permission to be able to work as I figure this out, to get a letter of support to the Forest Service and to DES on the need to repair this.
What would they do?
The Ski Touring Foundation is trying to, my guess is you're probably gonna need to do some rock riprap here. Normally you wanna use trees and that sort of stuff, but I don't know how you're gonna tie those things in and keep them in there in that particular location, because the river is actually bending there, so that energy is getting focused right against that esker. And as I say, you can look at the soils here. It's classic esker. It's highly erodible. So not only do you get the trees, but every time you get a major storm, you're getting a pretty big sediment load that's moving down through the water precinct, then down into our delta out here.
Mm-hmm.
There is also, just before you get to the warm-up hut, the first bridge that you cross is Spruce Brook. And that is actually on Ski Touring Foundation land that's in the, I would need that same kind of letter. It's not as serious here because you can see there's a lot of rock and it's harder. The Missouri Brook one is more complicated because you have the Forest Service involved and you also have an esker. Spruce will be working on as well, but again, I probably want a letter here because that's doing the same sort of thing. It's eroding away. It will come underneath the abutment here and start to pull these trees down. But if you want to save the infrastructure here and you don't want to send these trees downstream, something's got to be done pretty soon. If there's another storm, like the December storm, you're going to see a lot of stuff, the upslope of the trees here. Anybody that's been out there knows that esker goes up probably 80 feet or whatever. It's a pretty big hill. So I'm just asking if we could, make a motion to support letters with the Ski Touring Foundation as it approaches DES and the Forest Service to see if we can't get this accelerated to try to fix this before the damage, not only to these bridges, but also to what will be sent downstream into our delta out here.
So the stone bridge you're talking about is the one up by the Wildcat? On
Well,
Green Hill?
No, you have the stone bridge, right? You have the Jackson Ski Touring covered bridge, and then just upstream is the stone Route 16 bridge. So The Ellis is coming down along Green Hill Road, comes underneath Route 16 bridge, which is not a huge clearance. There's moderate, but again, it's fun when you get trees coming down and they jam up. You don't know what's going where at that point.
Gotcha.
And we've seen how much flooding happens out here, but part of that is the more you get upstream, erosion and deposition down here, we're gonna see more flooding in town.
Is this on the top picture? Just to get my bearings. Is the Tiki Corner like right up here?
You're looking downstream at the bridge. So River Right is the esker itself.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if you were skiing from the south, you'd be going from right to left.
Oh, okay.
You'd be skiing north. If you're coming from the south,
Mm-hmm.
from the Coco Cabana, you would hit the bridge on the right-hand side of the bridge and then proceed across it.
And that's looking upstream,
That is correct.
right? Because
And actually, once you cross that bridge, the trail forks if you're going southbound.
right. Oh, right, because it's riverbank that way. And
Yes. So you're looking upstream. And again, you can see the bend. And if you look here, there was a historic road on the right-hand side of the spruce. And if you looked at the reserve, after you cross this bridge, you start up the bank. And that bank was the old road that went up to where the dump was for the old hotel that was here. And that's where the former little pond was the water source that came down to Jackson. And that's been hardened, which is part of what's forcing the water over onto this esker. So there's quite a bit of human manipulation that's enhanced what's playing out there. If you ski up there, take a look at it.
It's quite
It's scary.
shocking how many trees are
Yeah.
coming down.
At a minimum, I think we're gonna try to see if we can get the Forest Service to allow us to just cut these guys and get them out of there. Leave the stumps, and then that's not gonna solve the second problem though, which is you're gonna have to build something to protect.
So you're saying probably riprap in front of the esker?
I don't, ski touring will probably hire a geomorphologist, somebody like Headwaters to give
Mhm.
the final, but, you know, my unprofessional thing is I'm not sure that there's much else you can do there. The desire is usually to do, take root wads and that sort of stuff and embed them in there. But the problem with those is they last 10 or 15 years and then they will rot out again. And here you have so much energy coming in at it. My guess is what you want to do won't last well. But
Right.
it's time to get a professional to look at it, but
Right, but I mean, it's logical.
So when is the timing on that?
I need to start working with DES to find out, you need a dredge and fill because you're working in that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. There is an emergency, and I've gone through the CFRs with the Forest Service about filing for emergency as well. That may take me a little while to dig through that sort of stuff and then touch bases with the Forest Service.
But it would just be included with your application for the permit? Okay.
Yep.
Why?
The letter from the town here would from the commission would basically say is, we are concerned about the impacts that it could have down here in town.
All right.
And that's $300,000 worth of bridges between these two bridges you're looking at.
So are you making a motion asking?
Yeah, I
for-
think that's what we've standard done, but that you be able to work with me when the timing is right, and I need to figure out but I think we're gonna need a letter to the Forest Service from Reserve. We're gonna need a letter to DES probably for both Spruce and Reserve. Because nobody can go in and start to work there without the permits. Well, you can, but the cost will go up with the fines.
Yeah, We just call it a fire pond.
Right. And then we can do anything.
But there are emergency conditions within there, and I think this warrants, because we don't know whether the next December storm is gonna happen 3 days from now or
Yeah.
2 years from now, but you don't even have to be a hydrologist to look at this and say the next one is.
Well, I'll second a motion.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
I,
I'll rephrase it.
Okay. I guess that is everything. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
A second?
Everybody
Second.
wants to stay.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Our next meeting is going to be April 7th. Same time. And thank you very much. I think this is our shortest meeting we've had in a long time. So.
It is March.
Guess we won't let Brian come next time.
Well, we're gonna know a lot of what's going on at the next meeting.
Now that